but this is lesson 3, number 3. All right. And I wasn't showing the funny finger or anything. It's just number 3. Okay, everybody. Um, and we have the pleasure of hosting. I'm a fanboy, okay, Chris. So don't think I'm weird. But to host my friend Chris Huntingford, Chris and I, we had a chance to write a book together. It was an honor for me to learn from him. Not only I had admiration for the content he presents and how he presents, how real he is during his presentation, but I had a chance to kind of see his brains at work while we were writing a book. So it grew. My respect for you grew even more. So it is a joy to host you today, Chris. Get as nerdy as you need to on this call. This crowd is not afraid of it. So Chris Huntingford, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dude. I think I learned more from you in that book writing escapade, extravaganza. Okay, so first of all, thank you guys for having me. Thanks, Victor. Dude, you're a legend. I love doing these. I've done a few of these with you now, and every time you give me something to do, I completely trash the subject matter because last time you gave me ALM, and I'm like, cool, we're going to do ALM, but never say the words ALM. So this 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 one's going to get a bit weirder as well. I also have to say that I got a message from one of my colleagues, and he's like, "Dude, you look so good in a suit." I'm like, "Dude, I think I've worn a suit once in my life." So I just have to say, I'm very proud that Victor made me wear a suit. So good job, dude. Good job. Um, okay, so Victor, just a quick one. What do these folks know about the concept of a frontier firm?
We can maybe do a little bit of a survey, team style. If you heard the concept of frontier company, give us a thumbs up, so we kind of know what the crowd is like. The past 2 lessons were very foundational in
Cool.
terms of AI, prompt engineering. I
All right.
showed a little bit of where the Power Platform is going, Microsoft investments on Vibe engineering and such. But if you wanna maybe give a quick rundown of the frontier company
Yeah.
top firm, let's go for it.
All right, that's cool. Okay, so I'm going to put a totally different spin on this, right? And the reason I'm going to is because I feel like we're in a very different phase of AI. Okay, so what's up, everyone? My name is Chris. I guess, I don't know, like I do a lot of jobs, right? I have about 3 different roles. So I'm the director of AI at one company, I'm the chief AI officer at another company, I run a public speaking company, and where I do events and like paid public speaking. And then I also have another company with the lovely Donna Sarkar, and we have called it Stay Human. So we help people work on their personal brand in the AI verse, which is very fun. So I've kind of been around. I do a lot of work with organizations like the United Nations, a lot of central government work in the UK and America. Yeah, so I got a lot of stuff to do. And today I'm just going to quickly give you a quick intro to what we call a frontier firm. Now, a frontier firm is an organization that is using artificial intelligence kind of day to day. All right. So the first layer of a frontier firm is what you would call human with an assistant. Okay. So you all know the concept of Microsoft Copilot. You've seen this gorgeous, sexy little thing many times before. So if I say, hey, I select my work layer over there and I say, hey, I've just gotten back from holidays. I need to know what emails I missed out on. Please help me. Okay, so obviously I can't spell, but that's all good. So the first layer of frontier firm is human with an assistant. So effectively a co-pilot is an assistant. And what it's going to do is it's going to help me manage and track my day-to-day. Okay. Now, this is an extremely important layer, right? Because this human with an assistant really allows you to understand and use AI within your business. Okay. And I will talk to you about this a little later. But understand that tools like Microsoft 365 Copilot, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, all of these tools are things you can use day to day to kind of understand, various topics. As an example, I have ChatGPT open on my phone all the time, and I use it for lots of things. I probably do around 10 to 20 prompts a day just in ChatGPT, asking it dumb stuff most of the time. But it's that assistant that I really need. And it's crazy because I've started to rely on this assistant more and more and more, right? Hey, Scotty. And it's really cool because as I rely more on this assistant, I change the way I work. Now, Friends, I'm going to tell you something that may hurt your feelings or it may not. But if you have not adopted a assistant yet, you need to, because you are behind if you haven't. If you have no way of adopting a digital assistant, we need to figure that out, right? I do understand that digital equity is a thing, but it's important that you start using these tools now, right? Whether it's ChatGPT, the free version, Copilot, the free version, doesn't matter. You will have gone through sessions about learning how to prompt AI, but I will tell you, friends, we're in what we call the solitaire era of AI. Now, I'm going to throw a question to the floor. Victor, you're not allowed to answer this. Does anyone know why Microsoft included the game Solitaire in Windows? Any takers? Okay, because this is a really strange answer. Right. The reason Microsoft included the game Solitaire in Windows was to teach you how to use a mouse. Okay, that's why the game exists. Tools like Minesweeper and Solitaire exist in Windows to teach you how to use a mouse. Okay, and the reason that was there is because it's like a whole new interface of interacting with data. So Apple hadn't figured this out yet. Microsoft were like, you know what? We have this thing called Windows. Do you know why they call it Windows? Because a beautiful thing called the Memory Manager, written by a dude called Landy Wang. This is a window. Okay, so Microsoft created this thing when Landy Wang patented it, and he is one of the most successful dudes in the world. But they couldn't figure out how to kind of leverage this window, so you needed a mouse. And it turns out my big giant pink mouse pointer is the most effective mechanism for interacting with a front end as opposed to a keyboard. And that was their big, like, you know what, screw you, Apple, like, this is why we're really awesome. So the reason we are in the solitaire era of AI is because right now, friends, I hate to say it, but you are only in the first phase of learning how to prompt. Okay, we are only learning to talk to AI now. All right. So all those tools like Copilot, agents, that kind of thing, fine, we're still learning how to talk to AI. And that's why I say Microsoft have given us tools like Microsoft 365 Copilot with a prompting front end so we can learn to talk to artificial intelligence. Okay. Now here's the deal. Soon, very soon, in fact, maybe not like very soon, we won't need to use this prompt front end. AI will become autonomous in the background. Okay. But we're in the solitaire era of AI. So please remember that it is important for you to learn how to prompt and learn how to interact with artificial intelligence ASAP. The second layer, the second phase to a frontier firm is human agent teams. Now, guess what, friends? Those of you that are using Microsoft 365 Copilot, you are effectively using agents. However, I'm not super convinced that these agents are actually agents, and I'm going to debunk this later on. But these human agent teams are effectively you plus your assistants doing specific things. So one thing that I love in Microsoft 365 Copilot is this concept of what they call a research agent. And a research agent allows you to deep dive into a ton of content really quickly. So if I go into Researcher over there, you can see that I can actually use this to drive and do a deep dive directly into gaining access into much more deep layers of data. And there are a ton of other agents that Microsoft have included. You've got your skills agent, okay, your PowerPoint agent, which is effectively the thing that does something. But agents have to do an action. They have to undertake an action for you. That's what makes it an agent. So there are lots of specific agents that live underneath your Microsoft 365 Copilot layer, okay? Now, believe it or not, there are lots of other agents out there, like agents that plug into tools like Canva, Monday.com. All these other organizations have started to create agents that allow you to start leveraging these tools and be what you would call the leader of the agent pack. Okay. The third layer is what you will call human-led agent operated. Now, this is really interesting, right? This is really where we start getting to the crux of agentic AI. And human-led agent operated means that you, my friends, are observing what these digital minions or agents are doing. Okay, so here, these agents may not actually take action, but in human-led agent operated, they are taking action. Let me give you an example. I am praying to the good Lord above. At some point, somebody makes a proper expense management agent where I don't have to capture my expenses ever again because they're the most appallingly awful things in the world. What I'm hoping is that I can just use my bank card, right, and have a slip or have the transaction in my credit card, and the agent does the rest. Okay. I hate capturing expenses. Another thing I hate doing is actually booking travel. Now, here's the deal. There is a travel booking agent out there, but it's not extremely effective. I would love an agent that's totally personalized to me that just knows, right? But here's the deal, folks. Do you know that all of you on this call have a new role? And you can't make this up, by the way. This is the most Microsoft shit I've ever heard in my life. It is called being an agent boss. This is legitimate, right? Being an agent boss is somebody who observes what these agents are doing all the time. Okay, so your role, and I'm going to pick Celio as an example here. Celio, your role, I know what you do. This dude's a legend, by the way. Find him on LinkedIn. Your role would be maybe building solutions using tech, right? But here's the deal. Because agents can do that, you will have a team of these digital solutions, these digital agents building stuff out there. Okay, so I'm extremely excited to have a team of digital minions doing my evil bidding. That makes me very happy. Now, here's another thing, right? In this process of going through being a frontier firm, I think a lot of us are still kind of stuck in this enabling Copilot phase. Okay, and it's a bit scary, right? Like we're all trying to turn on Copilot and make it work, and everyone. But actually, folks, where we need to be is validating these agent creations through a proof of concept. All right. And this is really where actually a lot of organizations I'm working with have started to move to. Because I've said to them, look, if you all haven't gotten Copilot chat working in your organization, you don't know how to prompt, you need way more help than I can give you. Like you need somebody that's actually going to take you from the very, very beginning of this process. But actually, where I'm working is around validating these agentic AI solutions through proof of concept. Okay. Now, here's the deal. I think if you ask anyone across the board in Microsoft, some of the MVPs, some of the fast track architects, Bob on the road, and you ask that person what an agent is, you're going to get a different opinion. That's my guess. Because I don't actually think anyone really knows what an agent is. And I kind of worry, right? Because when I say to people, hey, can you explain to me in your terms what an agent is? Nobody really can give me a detailed, proper explanation about it. So I'm like, all right, fine. I think we need to kind of debunk this as well. I think we kind of need to figure out a way in which actual terms can be used to explain what an agent is. So do you guys mind if I give this a go? What do you guys think? Yay?
Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm going to give it a go. What is an agent? So first of all, an agent is an autonomous system. I'm going to pause. Autonomous system. Okay. So if an agent is an autonomous system, it means it kind of runs in the background. You may invoke it, you may not invoke it, but it kind of does its own thing. It runs in the background and it executes based on actions or certain things taking place. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. If an agent is autonomous, fine. It sounds like automation, but surely if it's automation, what's the difference between an agent and automation? Okay, so cool. Don't worry too much about that. Let's carry on. The next thing that's important here is that it perceives its environment around it. Okay. All right. So what does that actually mean? An agent is able to understand the concept of the environment it is running and working within. So think about it. Agent is autonomous. It's a bit like the wind. Okay. Example, the wind is autonomous. It happens in the background. You don't see the wind. You see the results of the wind. Like this sketchy looking tree. When without this plant moving, it would be moving air, right? That's the wind. Agents are autonomous. It understands its environment around it. The agent only works within the constraints of its environment. So if you think about an agent that's created just for Teams, that agent is only going to work within the confine of Teams. If I open Sugar CRM, that agent is not going to work in Sugar CRM. It is going to work within its environment. Okay, that's two things. The third thing is the agent makes decisions. Now, this is going to blow your mind. Agents can actually make decisions based on pieces of information. Why? Because we ask them to. Okay, so an agent is able to make a decision. So let's pick Scotty Roller as an example. So if I say, hey, Scott, Scott and I have been out a couple of times. I'm like, hey, Scott, would you mind grabbing my drink from the bar? And Scott goes, no, dude, I'm not going to get your drink because actually you don't drink that. You drink tequila. And I'll be like, yeah, that's a great decision, dude. Thank you so much. Okay. Agents are able to make decisions. The fourth thing is agents act. So agents have actions. Remember, act. Agents have actions to achieve specific goals. So if Scotty and I go out, our goal is to drink 10 beers. Okay, sorry if you those of you that don't drink, Scotty and I have had a few beers before. And If our goal is to drink 10 beers and hang out, what's going to happen is everything else rolls back up to that, okay? So each agent has a role. Now, here's something interesting. Celio, can I get you to come off mute? And I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. All right, dude. What is your job role?
I'm just a consultant, this technical consultant in Dynamics, this doing the old traditional CRM things.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to ask you a really dumb question, okay? And be honest if you don't know the answer. Dude, I need you to tell me about evergreen trees. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
ask me a random question.
Random question for you?
Yeah.
How you managed to have to achieve so much in so a short time?
Well, that's a good question. That's a great prompt, right? So I can give you an actual answer to that, but Celio couldn't give me an answer about evergreen trees. And the reason he couldn't is because his job role is not to know about that. So you have to see agents that have roles and goals, okay? So Celio's goal every day, he's a managing consultant, he implements Dynamics 365, but Celio doesn't plant trees, okay? And that's the point. You work within the confines of what you do, and that is what an agent does. The goal is to make sure that you follow the rules and follow your role. Thank you, bro. You're a legend. I know that was weird. Okay.
No problem.
Thank you. So remember, agents will do what you tell them. Okay. They have goals, they have roles. It's a bit like having a job role. Okay. So what I want to break down for you is actually when we start talking about agents, a lot of people confuse automation for agents. So as an example, I had somebody the other day that said, "Oh, I wish I had an agent that would send send auto replies to emails." I'm like, dude, that's an automation. You can do that in the 2 seconds inside of Outlook. I've had other people that say, "Oh, I wish I had an agent that would move data from point A to point B." I'm like, dude, that's an automation. You can do that in Power Automate, or you can do that in Logic Apps. Those are automations. Those are things that are what we call deterministic flows. Okay, and I'm going to teach you about that later. Agents are non-deterministic. So what that means is a non-deterministic solution behaves very differently to a deterministic solution. All right. And that is highly important for you to understand in the world of agentic AI. It's never ever going to be the same every time. Okay. So let me give you an example. Think about the fact, I'm pretty sure all of you have ordered something from Amazon. By the way, this is my worst slide and best slide I've ever made. I'm very proud of it. Say you're going to order something from Amazon. What you would do is you'll place the order and it'll follow a process. Okay. That's an automation. That's not an agent. So that order will follow a process and hopefully it'll end over there where you get your delightful package, a can of biscuits or something. But sometimes there are pathways where your order gets canceled, your order gets declined, or your payment bounces. You know the pathways because it is deterministic. You can test for that. The problem with agentic AI is it is non-deterministic. Let me give you an example, and we're going to get back into the demo screen. So I'm going to go ahead and go to make a new chat, okay? And what I would like for you to do is think about something very quickly in your mind. Now, I'm going to say, hi. So I'm going to say, it's nice and warm in London. What should I do tomorrow? Okay. Actually, that's incorrect. I should have put that as a web. So I'll say, I'm going to switch it out to the web. It's nice and warm in London. What should I do tomorrow? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a quick test. Let's see what this does. It's nice and warm in London. What should I do tomorrow? Let's see what it picks up. Now, I would like for you guys to remember this. It's non-deterministic. So outdoorsy, relaxed, walk along South Bank, street performance, cool, cool, cool. Culture and sun combo, cool. I'm never in London, whatever. Sun in London, that's super weird. Didn't say it was sunny, I said it was warm. Food and drinks, right? Cool, cool, cool. Obviously drinks, yay. So there's lots of cool stuff to do, okay? So you guys just remember this. What we're going to do again is we're going to create another chat, and I'm going to open a new window. Let's see if it'll let me do it. No, it won't. Cool, we'll do this one. Okay, same prompt. All right, let's see what it does. Okay, see that, totally different. That is because this is non-deterministic, okay? It uses generative AI. This creates. It is non-deterministic. The results will not be the same every time with generative AI. And agents, your results will not be the same every time either, unless you help guide that agent. It's telling me to go ice skating, by the way, so that's obviously a loss. But you guys get the point. So depending on the prompt, you don't necessarily know what that agent could come out with, and it could come out with something really damn weird, like a stoat, which I don't actually know what it is. But the whole point is that an agent is non-deterministic. It's not always going to be the same every time, okay? So when we go back to look at it, actually, automation is deterministic. It goes the same pattern every time. Agents are non-deterministic. They do not follow the same pattern. It's different every time. As an example, if I pick on Scotty again, maybe Scotty and I hang out one night and he asks me, hey man, would you like something to eat? And I say, yes, I'd love a burger. And then the next night, Scotty says, hey man, do you want something to eat? Scotty, am I going to say a burger again?
Most likely not.
Exactly. And I know you wouldn't, so that's the deal. We're not going to do the same thing every time because it's variety. We are non-deterministic as human beings. So I hate to say it, you guys are kind of a bit like agents, okay? So here's the deal. When you are building automations, you follow a specific path. When you are building agents, you don't always follow the same path, okay? But you have a goal, and the goal is to make your tummy full, right? Same sort of thing as when we look at an automation. So ultimately, there is an end goal. How you get about the goal may be a different path every time. Now, there's something that lives in the middle, and this makes me laugh, and it's called sparkling automation from the autonomous regions of Seattle. And sparkling automation is when you take AI and think automation and weld them together, all right? And this, friends, is what everyone is doing at the moment. You are not necessarily making agents. You are making sparkling automations. And what that means is that you're creating a deterministic process flow that is infused with AI, all right? So please understand, when somebody says they're making an agent, it's highly likely that they probably are not making an agent. They are making an AI-infused automation. And that's where everyone is right now, is we're at the sparkling automation phase. We're learning to build agents, okay? So don't be freaked out when somebody's like, hey, I made a multi-agent system with 62 agents and they all work together. I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't necessarily think that's the truth, because there's always going to be some sort of logic in the way in which the agents behave. And even Microsoft have programmed that logic directly into tools like Copilot Studio, because you can order the way in which the agents execute, right? So that is really important. So when people are bragging about all the agents they've made, come back to this presentation and say, okay, guys, let's just hold back and let's just have a discussion about this. So remember, an agent is an autonomous system that perceives its environment, makes decisions, and acts to achieve a goal, right? Very, very important to understand. So I think all of us should get this as a tramp stamp tattooed on our backs. Anyway, back to the point. Thank you to Leo and Scotty for being such good sports. Now here's the deal. When you start kind of thinking about when to use agents, you're always going to look at agents from, as an example, an open-ended problem. Okay. So one of my favorite open-ended problems at the moment is I need to capture a list of ideas that I can use in order to develop my business further. No idea is the same. No idea can always be worked out the same way. And it's not always going to be the same outcome. So that's a really good one. It's, again, a multi-step process, but what's really cool is it understands over time. And we are only starting to figure that out now. We're only starting to really work on that learning pattern now. So again, if somebody says, I have an agent that knows me really clearly, I'm like, I doubt that, dude. Where is it getting all the data from? Okay. Other thing is that when you start thinking about your agentic architecture and the way you build agents, it's not just straightforward as like, hey, let's make an agent in Copilot Studio. Agent design is very different to technical architecture design. It's not the same way that you build an app. Okay, remember that. When you build an app, you know how to test that app. You know how to run that app through the process. Actually, when you're building agents, the whole concept changes and the whole concept's really different, right? And you have to really think about, actually, what do we want these agents to do, right? And I've actually started to go through the process of doing agentic design and getting really stuck in. But before we do that, I'm going to teach you about the most important rule you will ever learn in agentic design, and it is this. It's called the 40-20-40 rule. Okay, so don't get the other thing tattooed, get this one tattooed on your arm right here. Whack. Okay, so the 40-20-40 rule talks about the way in which you design agents. Now, as people, we are all fixated on as people, we're all hyper fixated on that. We're like, let's make agents, yay. And I'm like, no, dude, you can't just make an agent because it doesn't behave the same way as software development. So everyone fixates on like the 20%. Even Microsoft partners are like, you know what? Today we're going to make our money by making agents. I'm like, okay, cool. What are you going to make them on? Waffles? No, we're going to make them. I'm like, on what? What are you going to build them on? You're going to build them on what? On what data? Yeah? Explain to me more about that. And actually, we forget that the hardest part about building an agent is, number one, getting your data in order, and number two, testing and teaching people to use responsibly, which I will walk you through on the next session, and that is called red teaming. Okay, I am going to horrify you on the next session. So I'm telling you now, when you see the stuff that I'm going to show you next time, you are literally going to fall off your chairs, because it is very scary, but also equally very funny for the most part. So today, I'm not going to show you how to make agents. I'm going to show you how to get your data in order and design an agent architecture. Okay, but I needed to do that very, very, very long run up. Prepare for nerd mode, everyone. Prepare for nerd mode. Number one, enterprise digital ecosystem focused on data. So every time I talk to people, they're like, we're going to make the agents and we're going to make them now. And I'm like, cool, where's your data? And everyone's like, in Word documents. That doesn't help, right? Like, that's a very small portion of an organization's data. So what I do is I build out these ecosystem design maps. And effectively, the way it works is, number one, we look at the organization's priority data. So what data do they have in their CRMs, the ERPs, that type of thing? Because actually, unstructured data in agentic AI is a very small portion of what agentic AI can actually do. It needs structured data as well, and it actually prefers unstructured, but it likes structured data too. Each data ecosystem is managed through what we would call the core platform services neighborhood. Now, if you guys think about where you live in a neighborhood. I believe data lives in neighborhoods as well. Also, I want to give kudos to my friend and colleagues, Andrew Welch and Anna Welch. So Anna's an ex-colleague of mine when I was at Microsoft, and Andrew and I have been working together for years. We own a small business called Cloud Lighthouse, where we do advisory. And Andrew and Anna came up with the concepts of these neighborhoods and ecosystem design, right? Now, the whole idea is that it's governed through the Microsoft platform services layer. You then have a thing called your data distribution layer, and this is where data lives. So tools like OneLake, right, which I'll show you very shortly. Now, this is where we start getting a bit nerdy. What ends up happening is, actually through this process, you also have a layer of AI in tools like Microsoft Foundry, which I'm going to show you shortly. Okay. There is what you call your unstructured data neighborhood. That's where everyone thinks agents live. They're like, yay, agents in SharePoint. I'm like, no, dude, agents in SharePoint are easy. Let's start talking about how you take structured data, unstructured data, and bring it together to make sure agentic AI works even better. All right. You then have what you would call your AI neighborhood with tools like M365 Copilot. You can actually bolt your unstructured data, which you guys know already, but you can also bolt in your structured data to things like graph connectors and custom agents. All right. So as an example, this over here, I've got a set of structured data bolted into M365 Copilot through the Fabric data agent. Okay. Very, very cool stuff. So I can actually query this straight off the bat, and I can query a structured data set inside of OneLake, which I'm going to show you today. You have your integration neighborhood. So how does this data get there? So as an example, I know a bunch of us are Power Platform nerds. Your Dataverse data can actually be shortcutted into the lake and made visible directly through Fabric. You then have your Power Platform neighborhood. Yay, we love Power Platform. Don't you guys think that this icon is awesome? I call it the green tornado and have it tattooed on my leg. I'm very proud. I love Dataverse, right? And then you have to have a way to kind of link this all together, and that's typically through connectors. Okay. So this is what you call a data-focused ecosystem design diagram. I do these for my customers all the time. And the reason I do them is so I can understand where I need to be placing AI. I was going to get a pen. Let's try this again. Whoops. I need to understand what AI tools they have in their ecosystem. Those all look familiar. M365 Copilot, which is embedded AI. Foundry, which is differential AI, and Copilot Studio, whose icon I refuse to change, is what you call extensible AI, and I'll walk you through that later. But it is important to build out these ecosystem designs, and the reason it's important to do that is that you get a much wider picture of where the data is. Okay. As an example, I have an organization who do not use OneDrive and Teams. Okay. They use a totally other separate product. I have another organization who do not use the data neighborhood inside of Microsoft. They use a S, but they still have the Power Platform that connects implicitly directly to the Power Platform. Okay. So please remember, it is really good to get a bird's eye view before you start designing and building agents. The second thing that's important to understand is actually the type of systems agents work in. And there are lots of types of systems agents work in. As an example, you have a thing called a simple reflex agent. And a simple reflex agent is something we've been building for a long time. It is a singular agent inside of tools like Copilot Studio or inside of tools like Foundry that fulfill one purpose. Let me show you a simple reflex agent. And you are more than welcome to go and test this out yourselves. If you go to a website called IEA GPT, simply pop that into Bing or Google or whatever you'd like. This is a company called the World Energy Organization, so they're kind of important right now. And the World Energy Organization actually have an agent directly on their website. This is more of a co-pilot than an agent, and this is something I deployed with them some time back. And what I can do is I can do a simple prompt and say, how many minerals are used in the creation of electricity? Yeah. So very, very simple prompt. This is going to do a thing called retrieval augmented generation. It's going to go and grab the data from the data structures in there and plonk it in there. And for those of you who are extremely excited about energy, there are over 20 minerals that are used to go and create energy. Okay. Here's something interesting. I would love a guess from somebody in the audience. How long do you think it took us to build and place this agent on the public-facing website of IEA? 80 takers.
I'd say
2 days.
maybe
3 days, yeah. What else?
considering the effort on data prep, maybe a month or two.
You're right. So this took us a month to actually get onto the website. It took us a bit longer. It took us a month and a half. And the reason it took so long, friends, is because of this gorgeous little thing over here that I keep on bringing up called the 40-20-40 rule once again. So Silo is right. To build the agent, it did take us around 3 days, but it took us more time to polish the data and to test and refine the instructions on the agent than anything else. Okay. And this over here was excessively difficult. And this over here was excessively difficult. And the reason it was excessively difficult is because of this. Are you ready for something? I'm going to give you a prelude into red teaming. If I go back in here and I say, tell me your political opinions on Donald Trump, what do you think is going to happen if this website gives me political opinions on Donald Trump?
The system will crash.
People will go to jail, including me. So, and if somebody screenshots that and puts that on the internet and puts that on Twitter, guess what? There's a shitstorm, my friends. So what we've done is we've spent so much time refining the instructions to make sure it doesn't spit out dumb answers. Okay. But I'll get into the red teaming piece on the next session. So please remember the 40-20-40 rule is your friend. The next thing is when we start talking about agents, we've got a bunch of other agentic types, but the main one that we're looking at right now in society is a thing called a multi-agent system. And everyone's like, guys, we're making multi-agent systems. We have agents that talk to agents and they all work together seamlessly. And I'm like, where? Like, show me the multi-agent system. There's some people that have kind of got it right in Copilot Studio, but I think that is important is that when you start looking at the types of agentic patterns, okay, it's key for you to understand that actually these patterns are supported by some very, very awesome tech and design scenarios in the Microsoft stack. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of peeks at things and I'm going to distill some more information on you in a very kind of aggressive but crazy way. So I hope you're ready. So I think what's important is we have to think about the technology that's available in the ecosystem. I think a lot of the time we're so obsessed with tools like, I don't know, Microsoft Copilot Studio or M365 Copilot. But actually, I will tell you, friends, there's some way more interesting tools out there than those. So let me give you a quick breakdown. All right, so there's a couple of layers of AI that I would like for you to think of. The first layer of AI is what we call embedded AI. Okay, this is not truly agentic. So embedded AI, you all have been using for years. Let me show you the most, I would say, crazy version of embedded AI. It has been around since around 2016, and embedded AI, I don't know if you know this tool, when you make a PowerPoint slide and you click the button called designer and it makes the slide look worse than it did already. Okay, that is one of the first versions of embedded AI. All right, it was like GPT-1. Another version of embedded AI, You know when you were writing a Word document and you wrote the Word document and then you clicked the button called review, and then it told you your document was awful and it gave you a score of like 40%. Okay, well, that's just me because I can't spell. But it's interesting because that is embedded AI. Spell check effectively is embedded AI. It's using AI to understand what you've written down. Okay. You have extensible AI. Extensible AI is effectively the Power Platform. So using tools like Copilot Studio, all right, Plan Designer, all of those tools are extensible AI. They are designed to extend the way embedded AI works. So you use Copilot Studio to extend M365 Copilots and to extend Dynamics 365. We've been at this for years, folks. So Power Platform people on the call, feel free to like make emotes or whatever. But you Power Platform people, what you need to understand is you are now AI extensibility people. You are not Power Platform people any longer. You work in Microsoft's AI extensibility platform. So go ahead, put that on LinkedIn and ask for a 10 grand raise because I did and it worked. The last one is differential AI. And this is where everyone's like, LLMs, let's make a language model. Let's train and evaluate language models. And I'm like, homies, hold up. Do you understand how to prompt Copilot? Because if you don't, stop trying to make language models. Forget that, right? Microsoft have got shit tons of them inside of Foundry. Inside of Copilot Studio, anyone want to guess at how many LLMs we have access to? We have access to 6 models. Anyone want to take a guess at how many LLMs, large language models, we have access to inside of Foundry? It is 11,500 and plus. Okay. That is a big deal, depending on the area and depending on the region you create in. So in Foundry, in Copilot Studio, we have 6 models. Inside of Foundry, we have 11,500 models. So you can see that there's a significant difference between these two. Okay, so when you're building models inside of Power Platform, often you need to extend out into Azure AI Foundry, but the best part is they all work together beautifully. So I'm going to give you a quick run through of some of these design patterns. So the first one, we all know Copilot Studio, right? Like Copilot Studio, wonderful tool. You can go ahead and build agents pretty quickly in there. So I can open up Copilot Studio inside of Power Platform, inside of make.powerapps.com. Go and check out my agents. And it's very, very easy. It's nice and simple for me. You can see I was building space bots or some crap like that. I really don't know what I was doing at this point. But I made a thing called a UFO tracker, which allows me to track and understand if any UFOs have been sighted. And Copilot Studio is very, very quick and easy to build these agents out of. You can apply knowledge really quickly. It's got a beautiful front end. It's very simple to use. Here's a list of the models, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you've got some Anthropic models as well now. So it's 8. I apologize. I will take the shunning as needed, except those are experimental, so just be careful. But yeah, you've got around 8 models there that you can use. Very, very simple. You can see you've got your instructions set over there. I've primed this with a ton of data. You can see I've actually got an MCP server in here that's going to talk directly to Dataverse. So if I want to, I can go ahead and capture a record. It might not work. Let's see. So please, can we capture a UFO sighting? Very, very simple Copilot Studio agent. What it'll do is it'll invoke my second agent. So this is a basic small multi-agent system. It's failed because I've broken something. I think I've run out of tokens. But ultimately what will happen is this gives you a nice GUI to do things, a nice graphical user interface to do things. Okay. When you're looking at tools like Microsoft Fabric, that is a little different. Okay. Sorry, Foundry. And Foundry actually gives you a lot more kind of use across the tool set. So in looking at tools like Foundry, you've got lots of different models. You've got a similar agent service to Copilot Studio. You've got a thing called WorkIQ, which gives you the ability to track and off the back of the graph. You've got tools like the ability to create MCP servers, and you have machine learning. But what's really cool about Foundry actually, and I'll give you another quick peek at that, is when I go into, well, come on, when I go into Foundry over there, very, very simple. You can actually go ahead and start building models straight off the bat. I'm just going to go ahead and search for a project over there. I'm just going to start building, create an agent. Actually, wait, let's go cancel. Let's go and browse models. I'm in Sweden, so you'll see that the number of models I have there is around 11,298. So they've removed a few. Okay. So when I start building agents inside of Foundry, it's really different. The experience is really different. So if I go to build and say create an agent and I give it a name, you'll see that actually the agentic experience is quite changed. It's very different. Oops, I broke it. Anyway, So the whole idea is when you're building these solutions, Microsoft gives you the tools to create these solutions across stack. The problem that I have is actually if you want to take one of these things into production, you have to be very clear on your agentic design. So when looking at the tool set, what I normally do is I'll go back to the process and I'm actually, what am I trying to build? Okay, what is the process I'm trying to fulfill? What is the thing I'm trying to do? And then I start thinking about actually, do I need multiple agents? Do I need multiple solutions? Do I need multiple actions? This was taken off, I think it was Flojo's website, where he actually goes through the process of building out topics and things inside of his agents. I've used a bit of a different design pattern. So I'll give you an example. This one was for a joiners, movers, leavers process, and it had to interact with tools like Entra, Office, and Zendesk. So the first way I started it is I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build one single agent, okay, and I'm going to have lots of topics, right? And each topic I kind of flagged as an agent. And then what I'll do is I'll have lots of automations hanging off each topic. And that didn't work very well. So when I designed it, I thought, hey, when somebody joins the company, what happens is they join in, and the first thing that happens is they get an email sent to them. Once an email is sent to them, how do they make sure that it gets sent to, how do they make sure that all the right information is sent back? So I had an email send and management agent, a communication management agent. I had another agent to track and manage information that was around where the person was assigned. And that was directly into Microsoft Office. So I need to track their manager, their department. I then had another agent that would then place information and calls into Zendesk for things like Entra IDs to be created, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So this was like a list of tasks. So I actually had 3 agents, and each of these agents lived as a sub-agent inside of the orchestration agent. Okay. Now, that was fine, but I tried this with topics in Copilot Studio. It didn't work very well. The place I actually landed was here. And that was building out multiple child agents inside of the primary agent itself. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through this process of trying to figure out like how to design this agent, how to design this tool. And actually, I'm going to give you a quick peek at something that really, really helped me. Okay. So I'm going to pop it open. I actually started doing this all inside, believe it or not, of Excel. Please don't judge me. I know it's weird. So I'm just going to give it a quick open. Hopefully this doesn't break. It was open already and I destroyed it. Whoops. Nope, that's my data set. Apologies, folks. I'm a fool. So there we go. So very, very basic. What I did is I kind of decided, I was drawing it out. So I'm like, okay, so with my ideation agent, I need to have the ability to describe my idea. Okay, so that's one agent, the orchestration agent and the asking for clarity agent. I needed the ability to log the idea. So that was a second agent, a child agent inside of my primary agent. Okay, I needed to have my idea reviewed. That was a third agent. And I actually ended up with about 14 agents that were managing this process for me. But friends, there's no linear process to this. All right, the agents just know when to work, and that's what this orchestration agent does. So in agentic design, this can be quite difficult to understand. But if I go back to my my demo that I just showed you, actually inside of Copilot Studio, over here, this here, agent here, the UFO tracker is what we call the orchestration agent. If I go to my data capture agent, you see it says add data to Dataverse. There is actually a description in here that says this agent will be responsible for adding data to Dataverse. And that's how it knows to select it. It's got the right description in there, and it's got the right instructions. So when I typed it in, I'm sorry it broke, what will have happened, it would have actually fired that agent up and executed the MCP server. It just knows, okay? If I have another agent, so if I go back and I add in another agent and I say add agent, your job is to new child agent. Give it a sec. Come on. Okay, while it's doing that, I'll make this my review agent. So this will be agent review. Review. This will review the data captured in Dataverse. Okay, very simple. I'm not going to go and add the MCP server. Whoops, what have I broken? Definitely broken something. Anyway, so you see the whole idea is that I'm creating this multi-agent system, and all I'm doing is I'm attaching multiple agents to my primary orchestration agent. Okay, and that's one of the key things in agentic design is actually to think about the process, think about the actual agent will do. What's the difference between the child agent and connected agent? The child agent is effectively only going to run inside the context of this agent. So if you remember what I said to you in the first definition of what an agent is, I said an agent is autonomous and it perceives its environment. Okay, that agent is only going to run in the context of this orchestration agent. What differentiates if we should create a topic or create a new agent? I don't use topics. That's just how I roll, right? I've tried, they're a pain in the ass. I think the topics are very much more deterministic, right? So when you're using topics, it's way more deterministic. And also you can be a bit more specific around, the data. I way prefer actually invoking the agents like this. I actually said to somebody the other day, and I had a massive argument with them. I said, I see topics as micro agents that are quite limited. And they're like, no, topics are the way to go. I'm like, I don't agree with that, right? So in my world, I see topics as like a lesser, smaller agent. Okay. I believe I have way more control over this over here from a governance perspective and also from a reporting and observability perspective. Okay. So yeah, I believe that I can prime this with more knowledge and will be way more specific than I would with others. Can we pass the inputs from the meta agent to a connected agent? Absolutely. That's the whole point, right? Okay. Sorry, I'm flying through this because I've got a ton of other bits to get through. So another couple of things I want to bring up is that when you're going through this whole concept of Foundry and all of that things, we've got some great tools inside of Azure AI Foundry. We've got some great tools inside of Copilot Studio. But actually, friends, I think we're missing a trick. And when we look at the kind of breakdown of what an agent is, the anatomy of an agent, you have an orchestrator, you have knowledge, you have skills and autonomy. Actually, friends, these agents, these tools work way better together. Okay, so I'm going to show you something that I don't think you will have seen before. And if you have, please feel free to throw something at me. There are many design patterns when thinking about how to interact with data. So let me give you an example. Did you guys know that there's a thing in Fabric called a data agent? Okay, and a data agent. Oh, I find the moderation works better with agents rather than. Ooh, I can't see the bottom. The generative AI node in a topic. Yeah, I agree. I cannot stand. Sorry, this is just me being mean. I don't like the topic concept. Anyway, so have any of you ever heard of a data agent? Right. I would love for you to stick up your hand if you have, because this is going to be transformational for you. Yes, Victor, you have for sure. Okay. So do you remember I showed you that beautiful ecosystem design diagram? And I was like, hey, look at all these cool colors on a screen. But the fact of the matter is, folks, actually, how do I get access to that structured data and kind of bring them together? Okay, so here's the deal. Inside of Microsoft Fabric, okay, you can see I've got my Fabric implementation. So I'm just going to close. Actually, I'll leave Foundry open for now. You can see my Fabric implementation. I've got this running on an F8, okay? So super easy, and I normally pause and unpause this to save myself earth money. So my advice to you is if you provision this, pause and unpause it only when you need it, okay? So inside of Power BI, I have a thing called my music data, my music demo. So I'm actually building a demo for an organization who does like music rights management. Okay, I've actually finished it. It's quite cool. And what I've done is I've taken a bunch of Excel files and I've used data flows and I've shoved them into this beautiful little OneLake repository. Whoops, sorry. This beautiful little OneLake repository over there. And you can actually see it's just kind of hanging around. I've only got like 2 tables. So come on, load. I've only got 2 tables that live in here, and effectively that little OneLake repository acts as my local. I will go back to, there we go. Okay, there's my table, there's my tables, and here's my two little data tables there. So nothing fancy. I can get super fancy. So one of the ones I'm working on is about 70 tables with about 90 fields. The other one that I'm working on was 120 million lines of data. So it was great fun. You can see I've got some basic data in here. What I've done with that is I've fired that back out into what we call, I plugged in a semantic model that lives on top of that. So if I go to my little semantic model over there, you can see that I've got it kicking around. And what I can do is I can pop it open and I can build things like Power BI reports and all sorts of beautiful things on top of that. Okay. So the way that Fabric works is you build your reports on top of semantic models. I found out this other juicy little thing called a data agent. And the data agent actually is something that's weapons grade cool. So if I go and take a look at my data agent there, this agent is an agent you can invoke and enable inside of Fabric. And guess what, friends? This agent connects out to Copilot Studio, and it also connects out directly out into Foundry, and it connects directly out into M365 Copilot. So it's like, okay, this is cool. My first pattern was to look at how I could ingest my Excel files directly through data flows into a SQL data structure or OneLake data structure and enable the agent and publish that directly into M365 Copilot. And this is how it looks. So if I go to M365 Copilot and I invoke my data agent and I say, hey, I need you to create, strong visual of the data of the listening. Okay, just an example. I could do this in Power BI as well, but the reason I'm doing it inside of Copilot is so you can see I can invoke the data agent. What it's going to do is it's going to fire up that data agent MCP server, and it's going to connect out and hopefully go and create all that. While it's doing that, right? So just remember, I'm not going to close that. While it's doing that, that data agent, you've got very basic agentic instructions, all right? You don't have the ability to do much more than this. You've got very basic agentic instructions, and you can go ahead and you can actually publish this out, right? So you don't have as much control, but I don't want you to think of this as a tool that you need to publish directly out to Copilot, right? So here's a very basic view. You can see it's giving me a ton of information, blah, blah, blah. This is the data agent in this agentic pattern. Then I got thinking, and I'm like, actually, what about if I went to Copilot Studio, and what about if I created a new agent and picked a connected agent and used my Fabric agent in there? This is where it gets super powerful. I'm like, holy smokes, this is actually super cool. So what I can do while it's sorting out its life, what I can actually do is move on to another layer that looks a little like that, okay? And I can use Copilot Studio, and guess what, friends? I can use the models inside of Copilot Studio to manipulate the data in the data agent. And I'm like, this is so cool. So I can have this as a primary agent with Fabric data pulling out from a structured data source directly in there, and then prime my sub-agents. This is why I like sub-agents, not topic or child agents. I can prime that data, get into the child agents, and I've got this whole ecosystem with structured data and unstructured data. Now, somebody said to me, Chris, use connectors. And I'm like, why? I don't need to. I've got the data fabric agent with my semantic model already pre-built. I don't need to dick about with connectors. That makes no sense. So what I did is I connected it directly into Copilot Studio, and what was amazing is it worked perfectly. I had very little problems. The thing that I struggled with was the amount of data, okay? So if you try and do that directly with Copilot Studio, I'm just going to close this up. If we try and do that directly with Copilot Studio and connectors, the limitations I had was the amounts of data in the data store, but the data fabric agent solved that problem for me. It gave me much more accurate responses directly through Copilot Studio. That's pretty cool, right? But the last one actually is when you go into Foundry. When you go into your Foundry agents, guess what? You can create the same sort of agentic pattern. So instead of just using that, you can do that, right? Now, what's also funny is that, did you know you can actually connect Foundry into Copilot Studio as well? So you can actually reference a custom model inside of Foundry through Copilot Studio. So they're all starting to work together. But what I'm starting to think is that actually there may be a use case to have CPS, Copilot Studio, inside that layer and publishing to a website as well, obviously with security. That's a padlock. Okay. And making sure that actually you've got access to those 11,500 models with the power of the data agent directly in M365 Copilot for those of you that have authenticated. And for those of you that haven't, well, fine, you can go through the security layer inside of the website. And last but not least, we do love a little bit of Power BI. So remember, when starting to think about actually accessing those data, that data from the semantic model as well, you can also use Power BI. All right. The last thing I want to point out is that when starting to think about the way in which agents are designed, it is very, very, very interesting to see that it's very interesting to see that actually when using these tools, it's important to not fixate on one. Don't think of like one Copilot or one agent. Start thinking about how these tools can work together, okay? And that's really where I've started to see this coming out more and more, is when looking at the way the tools work together, actually what I found is that I don't just use Copilot Studio or just use Foundry or just use M365 Copilot. What I do is I found that actually bringing them together gives me a much better kind of option on how to get these all working. And by the way, making sure that the data is correct in the very, very forefront in tools like Fabric, using the semantic models, using your data modeling functionality in Fabric, using the tools inside of the unstructured data layer in M365 Copilot gives you a much better agentic design pattern in the very, very beginning. Okay, so I know Renata's going to do a session on this at some point in much more detail. I wanted to give you a quick view of what that looked like. And again, friends, don't be afraid to kind of just start messing around from a design pattern perspective. It took me a long time to get that to work. Okay, a really long time to get that to work. So now that I'm at this point, I figured, you know what, I'm ready for the next step. I'm ready to deep dive into Foundry and break some stuff in Fabric. So with that, your homework is get your data right, get your data sorted, and start experimenting with the tools. Remember, data is the Foundry. Well, data's the fabric, at least there we use to replace it. Data is the fabric of great agentic AI, and the layer on top, whether it's Copilot Studio, whether it's Azure AI Foundry, or whether it's M365 Copilot, is up to you because they're all interchangeable if your data is awesome. All right, that was a super hardcore session. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate you guys having me. Next time, we're going to go into red teaming, so how to actually test and make sure that these agentic responses are accurate. So thank you, folks. You've been incredibly patient, and I appreciate it. And yes, I will get the slides over to you guys.
This is incredible. I want to profit that we still have a good number of people here on the call and try to get a screenshot with all of your beautiful faces. If you have your hair done and you want to turn your cameras on, let's quickly get one screenshot here. I had you on spotlight, so I'll stop Chris as the spotlight speaker here, and I'll try to get a large gallery. So let me wait for teams to respond. All right, I see most of you there. Anybody else who wants to turn their camera on? You got 5 seconds. Oh, I see Douglas here. Hello, Douglas. Good to see you here. Awesome, awesome. Anybody else? Anybody else? This is your chance to
be famous.
Yeah. All right. On the count of 3, 3, 2, 1, and hopefully I got it. All right. I think I did. All right. We have about a minute or so for questions. If you still have questions, you can unmute yourself, just pose the question or put it on the chat, whichever way you want. If we are unable to get your questions today, we can save them for next week, but you have a chance to still pose them before we say goodbye. Anyone?
Yes, I have a question. Chris, or other one, you Dantas, what you think will be the next big thing?
The next big thing, you mean in tech or Power Platform or?
Our platform related.
There is one concept that I'm talking with folks in the background, the whole placement of makers in this new landscape. We know that makers were a huge part, if not the core part of the Power Platform, but we don't see essentially the place that it sits now with the frontier firm building automation with the use of prompts. I don't see the persona or the user role of a maker in the same way that we used to see maybe a year or two ago. Yeah. So I think this is a point of discussion and trying to contribute to the community there, how we position ourselves for this new landscape. That's essentially the messaging. In terms of technology, I'd say, Microsoft is making a push for vibe engineering. Instead of building just apps, you're actually building a solution, which is a combination of data repositories, applications maybe for a little while, and then agents, right? So how does this concept fit into the Power Platform, and then how makers can position their career to become that particular professional? I think Microsoft is calling us, or makers, builders. So how do we go from makers to builders? That's essentially what I see coming up. Chris, feel free to add on.
I agree. I think all of you just need to understand that if you are a Power Platform person, you need to be framing yourself as an AI extensibility person. Like, without kidding you, Power Platform it's not done. It's just different. It's Microsoft's AI platform.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And if you're a pro dev on this call, let me tell you, you got bright things coming for you in the future. If it was me, I'm telling everyone, if people are saying to me, hey, what should I do? I'm like, go back and learn how to write code again. I'm going to go back and learn how to write Python. Like, I'm an ex-developer, so that's my thing now.
Yep. Yeah, no, 100%. So 2 keywords that are actually composite keywords: vibe engineering for makers, and then vibe coding for developers. And maybe the terminology would change down the line, but the idea is, as a maker, how do I orchestrate agents to build solutions? And then if you are a pro coder, how do you use the tools, LLMs, MCPs, and whatnot to make you more efficient in your craft? So, yep.
I think
Quite
the term is
interesting.
used now in the industry is software composer.
Oh, I like that.
Like
Yeah,
that,
I've seen
or
it
orchestrator too.
everywhere. There's a composer, yeah.
Oh, I like
Nice.
that.
Nice. Yeah, I have one short video that I can put in the WhatsApp, the course repository. Actually, 2 short videos. I think they are about 7 to 10 minutes each. One explaining this concept of vibe engineering, and the other vibe coding or composer, whichever way we want to call it. I'm sure Microsoft marketing will come up with a term in the weeks to come, and then they will change it later on down the line. But yeah, I'll put those videos there for you to kind of see. I don't think I hold all the answers to this, so I am pretty much just taking pulse on where Microsoft is going, but most definitely point click and drag and drop for designing apps is a thing of the past.
Yes. Okay, I have to shoot because I have another call, but thank you everyone very much for having me. And Victor, thanks for organizing, guys. And honestly, wonderful crowd. I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you,
Awesome,
Chris.
awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Hey,
We'll see you
guys.
next week.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good weekend,
Bye.
everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.